My husband stood up at his mother's birthday dinner, placed divorce papers next to my plate, and told everyone I was a gold digger draining his family dry. His relatives applauded. 3 days later, my lawyer called about my grandmother's will. That's when his begging started, but I was already gone. My name is Obioma, and 3 months ago, I thought I knew what rock bottom felt like. I was wrong, because rock bottom isn't just about losing everything, it's about losing it in front of 20 people who applaud while it happens. But before we get to that dinner from hell, let me tell you something. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever been treated like you're worthless by people who should love you, hit that like button and subscribe right now, because what I'm about to tell you proves that karma doesn't just exist, she's got a wicked sense of timing. I met Derek 4 years ago at a corporate networking event in Atlanta. He was charming, successful, confident. I was working as an accountant, living modestly, sending money back home to Nigeria to help my grandmother with her medical bills. Derek's family had money, the kind of money that came with country club memberships and vacation homes. His mother, Patricia, made sure I knew from day one that I wasn't their kind of people. She'd smile at family gatherings while making comments about my accent, my clothes, my quaint little apartment. But Derek defended me back then. He told me his mother just needed time to warm up. 3 years of marriage later, I realized she wasn't warming up, she was waiting for the right moment to strike. When my grandmother, Mama Ariaze, passed away 2 months before that birthday dinner, I was 6 months pregnant and having complications. I wanted to fly home to Lagos for her funeral. I needed to say goodbye to the woman who raised me, who told me stories under the stars, who taught me that dignity wasn't something anyone could take from you. But Derek insisted I couldn't travel. Too risky for the baby, he said. I should rest, he said. He seemed so concerned, so protective. I stayed home, crying myself to sleep every night, feeling like I'd abandoned the only person who ever truly loved me unconditionally. Those weeks after her death, Derek changed. He started coming home late, wouldn't look me in the eye, spent hours on his phone in the other room. When I asked what was wrong, he'd snap at me about money, said I was spending too much, that I needed to be more careful. This from a man who bought a $60,000 car without blinking. Patricia's visits increased. She'd come by the house when Derek wasn't home, walking through rooms like she was inspecting property, making notes on her phone. I felt like prey being circled by a predator, but I told myself I was being paranoid. Pregnancy hormones, everyone said. You're just emotional right now. Then came Patricia's 60th birthday dinner. Derek insisted we go, even though I was exhausted, my feet were swollen, and I just wanted to stay home. He said it would mean everything to his mother. I wore my best maternity dress, put on makeup to hide how tired I looked, and walked into that private room at the restaurant thinking I was there to celebrate. The room went quiet when I entered, not the good kind of quiet, the kind where everyone stops mid-sentence and exchanges looks. Derek's sister, Vanessa, smirked at me. His cousins whispered behind their hands. Patricia sat at the head of the table like a queen about to pass judgment. We made it through appetizers. I barely ate, feeling nauseous from the tension. Then Derek stood up. He tapped his wine glass with a knife, and everyone's attention shifted to him. I smiled, thinking he was about to make a toast to his mother. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a manila envelope, and placed it on the table in front of me. My heart stopped before my brain even processed what I was seeing. Divorce papers, right there next to my untouched salad, with 20 pairs of eyes watching my face crumble. I don't remember driving home that night. I know I did because I woke up the next morning in my old apartment, the one I'd kept against Derek's wishes, the one he called a waste of money. Thank God I'd been wasting money because it was the only place I had left. I spent 2 days on that bathroom floor, crying until I had nothing left, my hand on my belly, apologizing to my unborn daughter for bringing her into this mess. Folake, my best friend since college, practically broke my door on day 3. She held me when I told her everything, and when I was done, she looked at me with fire in her eyes and said, "Sign nothing. We're getting you a real lawyer." I was sitting on my couch that afternoon, staring at the prenup Vanessa had shoved at me, trying to convince myself that $50,000 was better than nothing, when my phone rang. Unknown, uninteresting. I almost didn't answer, but something in my gut told me to pick up. A man's voice, professional, with a thick Nigerian accent. "Miss Obioma Nwusu, this is Barrister Okonkwo calling from Lagos regarding the estate of Mrs. Ariaze Nwusu." I thought it was a scam. I actually laughed, a bitter, broken sound, because of course someone would try to scam me right now when I had nothing left. But he kept talking. He mentioned details no scammer would know. My grandmother's full name, the street she lived on, the name of her church. He said her will had been processed and that I needed to schedule a video conference to review the assets I'd inherited. Assets, plural. I agreed to the call, still convinced this was elaborate fraud, but what did I have to lose? 2 hours later, I was staring at my laptop screen, watching 3 Nigerian lawyers in Lagos show me document after document, bank statement after bank statement, property deed after property deed. My grandmother, my sweet, simple grandmother, who I thought lived modestly in her small compound, owned half of Lagos. $500 million? I made them repeat it 4 times. My grandmother had built a real estate empire over 40 years, quietly, carefully, without flash or show. She owned shopping centers, apartment complexes, office buildings across West Africa. She had investments in London, shares in 3 major companies, and she'd left everything to me, the only grandchild who'd stayed close, who'd called every week, who'd sent money even when I didn't have much to send. Barrister Okonkwo explained that Mama Ariaze had kept her wealth private intentionally. She wanted to see who I'd become without the influence of money, wanted to know I could stand on my own. And now, right when I needed her most, she was still protecting me from beyond the grave. I sat there in my tiny apartment, pregnant and supposedly worthless, staring at a bank notification on my phone. They'd transferred $10 million as verification. $10 million, just to prove it was real. I thought about Derek's face at that dinner, calling me a gold digger. I thought about Patricia's cruel smile, her certainty that I was beneath them. I thought about every condescending comment, every dismissive look, every moment they made me feel small. And something inside me shifted. The sadness didn't disappear. I was still grieving, still hurt, still terrified of being a single mother. But underneath all that pain, something harder was forming, something they underestimated. I called Folake back. "Remember that lawyer you mentioned?" My voice was steady now, clear. "I need the best one you know. Money's not an issue." I could hear her confusion through the phone, but I just smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months. Trust me, things just got very interesting. I hung up and looked at my reflection in the black laptop screen. Derek thought he'd destroyed me at that dinner. He had no idea he'd just set his own destruction in motion. Monica Chen Adebayo walked into my apartment like she owned the world, and maybe she did. She was the lawyer Folake connected me with, known for destroying prenups and making powerful men cry in courtrooms. I sat across from her, looked at my situation for exactly 10 minutes, and she said, "They humiliated you publicly. We're going to dismantle them systematically." I liked her immediately. Within a week, she'd filed countersuit that made Derek's simple divorce look like child's play. We challenged the prenup on grounds of duress and coercion. We demanded full financial disclosure from Derek. And then Monica did something beautiful. She hired a private investigator. Turns out, Derek's late nights weren't about work stress. He'd been sleeping with his executive assistant, Brittany, for 8 months. 8 months. I was dealing with morning sickness and preparing our nursery while he was in hotel rooms with a 24-year-old. The investigator had photos, text messages, credit card receipts from romantic restaurants. But here's the part that made my blood run cold. Patricia knew. She'd known the entire time and encouraged it. There were text messages between them discussing how to get rid of me before the baby arrived, how to claim I was financially unstable and unfit, how to take my daughter and erase me from their lives completely. They'd planned everything. That dinner wasn't a spontaneous decision. It was an execution they'd choreographed together. Monica leaked the affair strategically through court filings. Within days, it was everywhere. Derek's professional reputation started cracking, but I wasn't satisfied with cracks. I wanted collapse, so I started showing up. New wardrobe, professional styling, maternity photos that looked like magazine covers. I went to the restaurants Derek frequented, the gym where his friends worked out, the country club where Patricia held court. I didn't say a word to any of them. I just existed, glowing and confident, wearing clothes that cost more than Derek's car payment. Let them wonder. Let them spiral. Derek started calling. First, it was angry, demanding to know where I got money from my new penthouse, accusing me of having a sugar daddy. Then it became desperate. Voicemails that started with threats and ended with crying. Texts that swung between rage and begging. I didn't respond to a single one, but I made sure he knew about every property I purchased, every business meeting I took, every charity board I joined. My lawyer's discovery process revealed my full financial situation in court, and I watched Derek's face in that courtroom when the judge read the numbers out loud. $500 million. His jaw literally dropped. Patricia, sitting behind him, looked like she might vomit. Everything Derek touched started turning to ash. Brittany left him the day she found out about the baby. She thought he was single and childless. His business partner, who'd heard about the public divorce and affair, started distancing the company from Derek's name. Patricia's society friends, those same women who'd smiled while I was humiliated, suddenly found reasons to exclude her from luncheons and fundraisers. Money talks, and I had more of it than their entire social circle combined. I didn't even have to say anything negative about them. I just existed in their spaces, successful and undeniable, and watched their world rearrange itself around the new reality. Then Derek showed up at my penthouse. Security called me, and I told them to let him up. I wanted this conversation. I needed it. He walked into my place, and I watched his eyes take in the luxury, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the designer furniture, the art on the walls worth more than his annual salary. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. He tried to smile, reaching for charm that no longer worked. "Baby," he started, and I cut him off with a look that made him step back. "Call me baby again," I said quietly, "and see what happens legally." My daughter Ariaze came into this world on a Tuesday morning, screaming with the kind of fury that told me she was going to be just fine. Falake was there, holding my hand, coaching me through contractions. My lawyer Monica showed up an hour after the birth with flowers and the card that made me cry. It said, "Welcome to the world, little warrior princess." The room was full of people who actually loved me, people who'd earned their place in our lives. Derek found out 3 days later when Monica's office sent him a formal notification. He wasn't on the birth certificate. That required my permission, and I hadn't given it. He lost his mind, filed for emergency custody, claimed parental rights, hired an expensive lawyer his family probably sold assets to afford. The courthouse hearing became a media circus. Reporters camped outside because somehow this became the story everyone wanted to follow. Rich man publicly divorces pregnant wife, discovers she's $500 million, demands custody of child he abandoned. The optics were devastating for him. Monica stood in that courtroom and methodically destroyed every argument his lawyer presented. She showed the judge photos from that birthday dinner, witness statements from restaurant staff who'd heard Derek call me a gold digger. She presented the text messages between them plotting to get rid of me before the baby arrived, how to claim I was financially unstable and unfit, how to take my daughter and erase me from their lives completely. They'd planned everything. That dinner wasn't a spontaneous decision. It was an execution they'd choreographed together. The judge, a black woman in her 60s, who reminded me of my grandmother, looked at Derek like he was something stuck to her shoe. Primary custody to me. Derek got supervised visitation only, and only after he completed court-mandated parenting classes and therapy. He had to pay child support based on his income, which Monica made sure to emphasize in her closing statement. Such delicious irony, the man who called me a financial burden now had to contribute to his daughter's care. I watched Derek's face crumble as the gavel came down. Patricia rushed from the courtroom before the reporters could corner her. I walked out the front entrance, head high, and answered exactly 3 questions before my security guided me to my car. 6 months later, Derek's business partner bought him out. Brittany sold her story to a tabloid for $50,000, the same amount they'd offered me to disappear. Derek had to move back in with Patricia, and according to mutual acquaintances, they could barely stand to be in the same room. She blamed him for losing me and the fortune. He blamed her for manipulating him into the divorce. Their perfect family image shattered so completely that Derek's siblings stopped inviting Patricia to holidays. His supervised visits with Ariaze were awkward, painful affairs, where my daughter would cry at the sight of this stranger who shared her DNA but had earned no place in her heart. 1 year after that birthday dinner, I'm running my grandmother's business empire and expanding into technology sectors across Africa. Ariaze is healthy, brilliant, surrounded by people who love her fiercely. I even started dating again, a kind engineer named Jadania who makes me laugh and treats my daughter like she's made of magic. We're taking it slow, but for the first time in years, I'm not afraid to trust. I established a scholarship fund in Mama Ariaze's name for young African women pursuing business degrees. 30 girls got full rides this year, and when I met them at the award ceremony, I saw myself in their eyes, hungry, determined, underestimated. Patricia volunteers at one of my charities now, not because she wants to, but because her social rehabilitation depends on it. When we cross paths at events, she can't meet my eyes. Derek works a middle management position and lives in his childhood bedroom. He posts occasionally on social media, sad attempts at relevance that his comment section destroys with reminders of what he threw away.